contentment, really.
I'm struggling with how to overcome pride. I'm not sure exactly. I'm trying to think of maybe some of the most effective ways. Having a conscious mentor in your life where the role is one of radical honesty and you have high respect for her or him can be very effective to put you and keep you in place. So that's helpful. Do you have a mentor? Would be a good question, or someone who could tolerate you? Because sometimes being overly egoic or proud is not necessarily so interesting for intelligent people. So you need someone who really loves you despite pride. Kind of sort of lost for words about it. I don't know why exactly. I'm not normally lost for words. Is it really an issue for you?
Yeah.
It is.
Particularly since I run a small meditation community.
I see.
Ever since.
And what do you do that you find disgust with? Do you overemphasize your attainments? Do you pretend to be someone you're not?
It's more a
Do you
level
look
of
down?
thoughts, really. I don't see myself actually acting it, but at the level of thoughts, like it's as if I'm walking around on a high horse sometime and just like looking down on almost everyone. And
Looking down on everyone.
Yeah, I don't catch myself actually actions, but thoughts a lot. And I think at the very least it manifests as being quite cold towards people.
Cold.
At least.
Cold, looking down, disgusted. Very attractive, huh?
I know, right?
Very sexy. Sexy. Good environment for that here as a guy. Lots of women will love that if you're hetero. Are you gay, or are you heterosexual or bisexual, or?
Hetero.
So, do you have a partner?
No.
You want one?
I'm not sure.
I mean, who would put up with your sorry ass, really? I mean, look around at all these gorgeous women. Ask them. Would you be with me? I mean, there's no real, I was being playful, just because that's probably the easiest way to man relate to things that we all deal with.
Well, maybe you can tell me about your experience, and maybe that's like...
I knew it'd come around to that.
Yeah.
Let's take it off of you, right? So do you lie with your bio on, say, Bumble or Tinder? Are you on either one of those apps?
I'm on neither, no.
You wouldn't stoop that low?
No.
Oh my God, you are full of shit. Wow. Full of
I didn't understand.
And you're full of shit.
I'm foolish.
No, worse than that, full of shit.
Full of shit.
I'm sort of just playing with you.
That's all right.
The only way we can get through the ego shit is to play with the shit.
Mm.
So number one, play with it a little bit, you know? Kind of just dance a little bit with it. That you're bringing this up in front of all these remarkable people, knowing that you're going to lose all these friends in the future? No one's going to want to hang with you. You're handsome, you're young, but you're just full of shit. You've exposed yourself. I ask you about relationship because one of the best ways that I have found to overcome my inability to see things about my heart, my mind, my life, my pride, my ego, my narcissism, is to be engaged in relationship and to learn how to hold myself accountable to the principles that I teach in my meditation or in my life. Honesty. I mean, you're a very remarkably honest person to share this with complete strangers. How do you feel about doing that?
Okay, I'm quite transparent as
Quite inspired.
I make a practice to be trying to be
kind of
transparent.
almost feed your ego a little bit?
Of course.
Of course.
I mean, yeah, it's not lost on me that when you say that, it's like, when you mention, oh,
I
people are
see.
not going to like you. Like, oh.
Yeah, so what, right? I am right with you. So you're incorrigible. You are almost in the category of, are you declaring your narcissism? Are you a narcissist?
I think I have been, for sure.
How did you get out of that?
Mostly by being so lazy.
Oh, fuck all that. You are so full of shit, it's unthinkable. Unbelievable. Tell me you go to Yoga Barn every day. Do you teach yoga?
No.
God forbid, huh? Do you exploit women?
Not for a while.
Would you do it again?
No,
How do you know?
I don't. I suppose it just banners on the conditions, but my life right now is remarkably
At peace.
yeah, it's remarkably peaceful. So it's like,
That-
on the right conditions, for sure, I would heal.
Oh,
I
man,
would
you're,
do anything.
oh my God.
Like everyone would.
Everyone would do all the things that you do. Are you sure?
No, I'm not.
Oh, you're a classic case for a high dose of ayahuasca. Have you done that?
Yeah.
Didn't work?
I'm talking to you now. Why not?
Oh, God. Write me off. I'm just as bad as you are. But if we can't talk this way, the hell, I'd be believing you that I'm a psychotherapist or that you got some problem. Next thing you know, I'd be kind of investing in you come to see me privately for $200 an hour. Will you do that?
What do you think?
I'll give you the truth in private. $250 for you, actually, cheap.
You see, the thing is, I got too much pride to accept that.
So you came to this freebie. Yeah. You and me, bro. It's a slow, long process of coming down off your bullshit. That's been my experience. I don't know how old you are, but give it some time. And the best thing for a heterosexual person is to be with a remarkably powerful woman. Better than meditation, better than plant medicine. Be with a remarkable woman as an ally and say, tell me the truth of things that you know that I may not want to hear, and be in friendship with her. And take it seriously. If one would tolerate you, that would be one of the great gifts you can give yourself. Far better than meditation, far better than anything. It's just putting all the goods in someone else who's got more insight than you do. And then reflecting back and learning how to absorb that into your life, then you've got a conscious mirror. The greatest growth I've had in my life has been through relationship. I honestly say that to you. The women who can tolerate me, it's been the greatest gift. More than meditation, more than travel. Someone who'll be really intimate and honest and still love you. You know, you're a lovable man, that you're funny, you're open, you're humorous. You know, so counterbalance, if I can, in sincerity, hold not only your struggle and your potential to be proud, but equally, you know, what's really beautiful about you? What would you say, or one or two things that you really love about yourself? Truly love.
I experience myself as being very kind.
Kind.
Yeah.
Super cool. Super cool. So, to reflect back to you, we'll move on. Whenever you find yourself being filled, I would only encourage you, as I do with myself, how to be kind. And then counterbalance that with kindness to self and reassert kindness with other. And then you're in your meditative Dharma there. And just do that as much as possible. And hopefully overcome enough of the pride to attract a conscious woman in our lives to really get more nuanced with the areas that are harder to see on your own. That would be my advice. Maybe even having a family. You're interested in a family? No, a little squirmish?
No, I'm not interested in working.
Into working.
I'm not interested in working to maintain a family.
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I understand. What type of work do you do?
Right now, I don't do any other non-spiritual work. I only teach this ceremony and I have a house which is like a meditation community.
Here in Bali?
Now in the UK.
UK. Meditation community.
Meditation this ceremony, yeah.
Well, so maybe invite me there and I can lead a retreat or something. Then I can have you come up there and lead with me. Risk it. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for your honesty.
Thank you.
And during this session today, if there are more questions that come up, don't hesitate that what we've done is in the spirit of just opening to each other. And thank you for your honesty about yourself. It's very beautiful.
Thank you for going for it, not being scared of offending me.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. It makes me feel seen.
Yeah. Beautiful. Bo, please.
Hi, Adam.
Hi, Bo.
Given your background, your cultural background, your ancestry, and your experience throughout the world, traveling, working, experiencing life, the West and the East, if you want to say, have you ever struggled with belonging to one race, one culture, one belief? Not to say that you need to, but being exposed to so many cultures and races and experiences and teachings, how do you balance it out? Which route do you take and how did you take it? And how would you give people advice to say, they're brought up in one culture yet they're raised in another? And how would they balance it out? Yeah.
Very interesting. Grew up Lebanese Christian. Grandparents on my mom's side came from Beirut in their wedding attire, 1919, New York. My father from Boston in Ireland. Bused to an all-black high school where I was reversely discriminated upon. Hated my culture as an American growing up in a war machine, essentially being conscripted into successive lies that looked like incarceration to me, psychologically and materially. I felt displaced, dishonored, and violated by being born. I had things that I liked, primarily sex and alcohol and sports. Good American, right? And music. Loved music. It gave me a reason to breathe and move and not feel alone. And the lyrics of music and the movement of music and the music and the movement of substance-infused music, substance-infused musical sex and philosophy and poetry, and it came through the feminine. I found refuge in the woman through sex, poetry, existentialism, life, and completely together we traveled the world feeling aliens in an incredibly foreign world. Went to India in the early 70s, not so much as a place to find answers, but a place to ask questions. And we found a deep psychological, spiritual, existential confrontation in that culture, primarily imagining this could be me. Radical confrontation of conditions and comforts. Eventually found my way into Burma, a place where I did not understand except that I wanted to meditate. And I found teachers there that responded to the culture of consciousness as a vocation of being a human, who supported me in feeling deep dissonance with being alive. So I identified with radical Buddhism as savior to insanity and suicide. Not overt as a gun, but a slow, calculated disgust with participating in the machinery of America and the world. Even the whole notion of she and I looking at each other's eyes after 10 years, now what? Now we're 27 years old, having been together for 7 years. Now what? She chose to be a journalist, I chose to be an inner astronaut. Stayed in Burma. Burma was the first home I felt where culturally I was met. But all around was war, your country, in Vietnam, as an American. There was the genocide in Cambodia. We had people fleeing Cambodia coming to our monastery. It was like a war everywhere I looked, except my heart wasn't as burning as it was in America, and I had people that supported me in being a trans-cultural, trans-religious, trans-planetary citizen. They speak very beautifully about being an inhabitant of consciousness without location, branding, all those things. So I felt like the more and more naked I was, the more and more insight I had, the more liberty I had to own a world beyond form, location, culture, dissonance of language. I was thrown out, thrown back into America. I never felt so displaced. Yugoslavia, I felt at home, but I was quiet about the comfort of being in this terrifying environment, finding people that I was resonating with on a principle level, but the war machine was killing me mentally. I hated the world for violating those people. To answer your question, I could go on and on. 4 years in Bali, 2 years in Lanka, a year in Kashmir, 2 years in India, a year in Thailand, in and out of Vietnam, in and out of 15, 20, 30 years of Australia. Recently had a family reunion, discovered that part of my family heritage are from the Ottoman Empire. And I go roots and roots and roots and roots, and I can't find an origin there that I identify with. I see us as species on this planet. So by and large, I am in disconnect to culture, to fundamental identity, and I kind of pride myself on extricating myself from these isms, these languages, the cultures there. I'm very American, very Arab in that sense, but by and large, I'm not a citizen of the world anymore. I don't feel comfortable in this world. I don't trust it. So my place is not so much an escape as it is a recognition that it doesn't really work for me. And I've seen too many things where the comfort of you and I hanging here, in a second the window pane of that certainty is broken and it's bleeding. And it doesn't take a lot to know simultaneous to this comfort, there are many things happening that are horrible. So I don't feel comfortable in playing in the world of geography, location, language, and certainly not religion or belief, nor even gender. So where we meet in consciousness in this time, I can play in relativity, but I'm looking for a much safer sacred zone than anything I've ever known on this planet. If you were to really go to the core of me and you, and we were doing some kind of psychedelic together, I would basically confide in you, Bo, my real aspirations in my next life. I make deep aspirations 3 times a day to point my psyche and consciousness into a location of Alan's specificity. I have a place I want to go. I make determinations every day to relocate there when my body dies. It's not here. So that's as far out as I can go with that story. I don't feel comfortable as a human in society or culture. In fact, if I be very frank with you, I hate culture. It's a killing machine. We've killed nature. We lie about it. We fucking violate women worldwide, regardless of your nationality, your age. We're a killing species. And we've killed off the future of life based on our pride and our ignorance. And I'm a participant in that. What's going down here does not look workable to me. I don't think that we can create a sacred garden on the planet. A sacred garden in consciousness, but I'm looking for a trans-earthly, transhuman, trans-world experience, and it's not here. I don't want to be born a human again. Namaste. Pretty exciting, huh? I don't know if you've ever felt those kind of things, but it's a very honest experience. You know, it's hard to survive wars and various insults to humanity and say that it can work out. It works out as far as I'm away from it, but I can't separate myself. There was one time that I was exploring with a friend states of consciousness in self-inducing various substances. We began to place ourselves in the mind and body of other people in the world that we didn't know. Why could I feel safe when I'm talking about compassion, when I could feel the pain of a Tibetan nun who's been chained in a Chinese prison in Tibet, who's being systematically raped by soldiers? Where am I in relationship to that experience? What separates me ontologically and through cognitive interconnectedness that keeps me safe in my little bubble and separate from her anguish? People talk about oneness so frequently, but have no relationship to the experience. Talk about bypassing. So my theory is, the more two we are with the one, the better it is. To really understand distinction, discretion, circumspect, and boundary, until we find a deeper oasis inside that is perhaps more durable, no matter what happens to us, that we have some resilience to deal with it, especially with the catastrophic collapse of the environment. Decided to be honest today.
So you talk about even culture, safe and environment. Actually today I encountered one experience. So while coming back from lunch, so I took a turn into this group. Suddenly there was this guy following behind me. I had the instinct of like, never had before, this guy is following me and he was wearing black mask.
That's right.
Like, for the first time I was feeling afraid. And kind of like when I came in here, he looked in front of me and was like, I was trying to go really fast. And it dawned on me that I don't feel safe as a woman. You know, I want to feel a lot, I want to be sexual, I want to be pretty, I want to feel good, but I don't feel safe to present myself as who I am. You know?
Yeah.
So, feeling too much, you're dramatic. You know, too dramatic. Or you're being truthful, or you're just being vulnerable. They said, come on, you're having too much hormones, emotional imbalance. That's the internal. But externally, we women, we love to be, you know, the treat us goddess, like beautiful women. You know, we find it so hard to just allow ourselves to be the sensual woman, the soft woman that we want to be. And, you know, sometimes we are being, I don't know, just being treated as an object to, yeah, she's pretty, she's that, but really, can we really be safe to just dress the way we want to and be treated with respect, like, this is who I am, you know? So this is how I feel when you talk about being safe. It's not even in a cultural sense or whatever, but it's my body and I'm being treated respectfully and for who I am. So I'm just one voice that saying that, you know, I
Sure.
don't feel safe.
Don't feel safe here. Thank you for the courage to say that. I'm sure other men and women feel the same way, certainly at times. I don't feel it anywhere. I have got any more sensitive when I walk down the sidewalk to go to dinner or back from lunch. I'd be probably institutionalized as a paranoid. There's a part of me, as I sensitize, I cannot escape the sensitivity of intimate meditative moments, pure moments of intimacy with a woman, and pure psychedelic experiences. I feel so porous that I'm breathing fossil fuels all day long. Breathing cigarette smoke, breathing toxicity, transforming breath by breath as much as possible. There are places, rare places, where I go, wow, on the beach in Byron. But the wildfires are everywhere. Africa is everywhere in Europe today. Climate refugees, raping boys and girls. It's a horror all over the world. If you can hear it, if we had flat screens all around this villa, and each of us had 2 minutes to tune into an area of the world that we wanted to expose, either the good, the beautiful, or the bad, or all three. I want to see downtown Frankfurt. I want to see Aleppo. I want to see the worst of Denpasar. I want to see the horrors of the most impoverished places in Syria. I want to see the refugee camps outside of Mosul. Pause. I could go on and on, Jada, about how unsafe it is. 2 years ago, I was giving up. I was so done. Done. There wasn't another person I wanted to meet. I was done. No book I wanted to write. Nothing I wanted to say. All I wanted to do was go to some anonymous place and give back to the last bit of life that I had in me. To give back. I've been happy in refugee camps. I'm not nearly content with white Western elitism. I'm at two with that. It's hard for me not to judge the shit out of the unsafety of arrogant men and women, set aside predators. I'm an aggressively emotional man. I'll never harm you, but I feel violated by life. Okay? The only salvation I have is to keep trying to overcome and be open. And some of the most open places are the most vulnerable people. Prisons. Displaced people. Camps. So I decided, okay, where do you want to go? I had studied Mosul in Iraq. I looked online. I want to look in Mosul. I want to go there. I want to be anonymous. I don't need any money. I want to go there for a year and volunteer my services. So I looked at Mosul. ISIS had been overcome. One camp that came up on my search by the UN, somewhere outside of Mosul, 150,000 people. I'm looking at the small print. I'm thinking about getting the flight going, what I'm going to tell my family, my friends. And I look at what's going on there, and they make footnotes. Most inhabitants are women who've been systematically gang raped by ISIS soldiers. I've had some experience with that, but I'm breathing a little bit more intimately. Most of these women are dealing with what's known as human devastation syndrome, meaning that it's post-PTSD. These women who have been systematically violated for a year or two or three repeatedly by fucking ISIS soldiers every day. And what the syndrome is, these girls have a sleep disorder where they wake up only every fourth or fifth or sixth day. That's a symptom of human devastation disorder. And when they get up, I'm reading the fine print of where I'm going to volunteer, and these women tell their people whom are helping them how they wish they could return to be sexually engaged with the ISIS soldier. They have so internalized the trauma, they thought it was appropriate to survive. I threw up. There was no way that I could volunteer. 150,000 women in one camp. And I'm thinking, let's go to Ubud. Let's do a yoni massage. Let's work out the pain and the trauma. No offense. But we're juxtaposed with this incredible, and of course it's going to infiltrate in our lives. It's infiltrated in what we're breathing, the heat. We're not separate from Shanghai, New York, Sydney, Hong Kong, LA, UK, Berlin. The world is on fire. Greta's saying, panic. The Buddha said 2,600 years ago, act as if the house is on fire and not be a child enamored by the toys. The burning of old age, disease, death, being encountering that which you don't want and being taken from what you love. They're inevitables. So what you're reflecting and what I'm reflecting back to me and you and others here, which we can all reflect back together, there is no escape from safety, unsafety, except this Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang. You cannot escape from the only refuge we have access to in our hearts, which is Dhamma. Can't go on enough to be a radical yogini and go, yes, I see that, I'm scared by it, but I'm going to keep fortifying no matter what. Read Sorrow Mountain, a Tibetan nun who was repeatedly raped and transformed it into compassion. There are examples. Uparle, Da Aung San Suu Kyi, so many people. And we've got to rise to the emotional occasion now to have soiled our nest. All life, as we know it, primarily in habitat. There will be a few that survive, but it won't be you, and it won't be me. I'm not rich enough. And my family too. And not to mention the suffering. So what that 100 million people survive? So what that 1 billion survive? That's 6 or 7 billion long-term dystopian, tangled, mangled lives. I don't like it here. It's unsafe. I have learned that at 68 years now. The only citadel that I can build is a fortitude, a revolutionary fortitude of my soul, to do all that I can to resist evil inside and out, and to draw near to good people, and to break bread, drink wine, make love, erotic poetry, and play as the house is burning. Sister, come out and dance. There's no other way to fight the evil than to fucking enchant it with our unwillingness to participate in fear. Music, satire, comedy, humor, get with the music of today's revolution. That's how I talk to myself. So thank you for reminding me. Tonight I'm going to lose it. Maybe I'll even do it right now. What would it look like? Being honest, right? And being pure and being open. Why mix words? So thank you for being pure, thank you for being open, thank you for being honest. And is there hope? No. But is there reality in love? Yes. So I ask myself so often, I don't have boundaries that are very clear. Like, why can't we be in love? Aren't we in love? How much more chemistry do we need to further the love affair of the moment? I ask myself, what am I looking for energetically to move forward and in and together beyond? You ever do that? Like, how do you know to proceed, what to do, and how to do it? Am I the only one? No, I'm not the only one who does that, right? No? It's normal, right? How do you know how to assess energy, right? And pulling out the stops of, I would want to call it appropriate, suitable timing, and be more and more available to what I did when I was younger, which was like, yeah, sure, bring it on. 3 days have gone by, and we're now in that kind of hyper trans DMT state. We're going like, oh my God. I love those oh my God experimentations. So my future is in creating a little oasis where I can have a consciousness lab. I want to bring good minds together and co-create in a little bit of a theatrical, theater, ambient, perfectly suited, acoustic, well-documented garden for 5 or 6 or 10 people where you can play in these experimental states of consciousness and document the evidence of us losing it so that possibly, how do you pronounce his name? Giorgino? Giordano Bruno, right? Giordano Bruno, correct? Giordano. The guy lost it. He looked out through his telescope as I project, and he said, wow, the earth is not the center of the universe, nor is the sun. Pope, Church, Vatican, you got it wrong. You would think it would be a celebration. If we had an aphorism right here, or a deva, or an angel that appears, here is the vision that you're looking for. This is the salvation of hope. Try to do this within consciousness, and you can take yourself beyond the physical form. Sign me up. Sign me up. That's why I'm going back to Burma. I've got a teacher there who wants to help train me in trans-physical consciousness. How to escape form. I'm looking for an escape clause. So anyway, I don't know why I said all that, but I did. Madam?
continuing on that thought, when we speak of the evolution of consciousness generally, do you think that's the direction catalyzed by the catastrophe to force us into an existence that is a destruction of the systemic ways that we've been harming our environment and ourselves?
The evolution of consciousness?
Yeah.
Is that the direction?
Yeah. This trans physical.
I have my mentors and teachers and guides and systems that have helped me over the decades understand trans-evolutional, transcendent, liberating states. I know it's possible. I've meditated a lot. I'm keen on developing those now in the next few years. And so yes, it's not so much the evolution of consciousness as the evolution of my own consciousness. The conscious participation in next frontiers of consciousness. That's where I'm interested in. And that's why I'm withdrawing more into my own chosen aesthetics. And I want to refine that. I'm bringing in people more and more who want to play in those higher realms of frequency. Yeah, that's my only real concern. I've got a few people in Burma that are younger nuns and monks that are super, super talented. When you come, you'll meet them. They won't talk to you about it, but I would talk to you about it through them. And that excites me. I know in the last couple of years I've been experimenting, I won't say with what and how, and I know it's really possible to embody new states of mind that radically shift perspective for me and excavate fear, greed, possessiveness, the need for legacy, resolution, reciprocity, reconciliation, harmony, all those things that keep me very human, but I'm moving in the other direction. I want to make love in different ways, with different states, and possibly, listen, I'm in Ubud, let me get away with it. I want to consciously disappear. If I disappear, know that it was an appropriate conscious decision. I'm all into that. I do believe it's possible. Does that answer your question? Please, take your time. Take your time. We've got time, and please be open about anything it is that's important to you. And we'll go down the road of opening.
So I know you wrote a book to your daughter.
I wrote a book to my daughter, yes.
From a different perspective, sort of, how did becoming a parent change you? What did you find to be the most challenging, and what was sort of the biggest fuck-up?
How did being a parent change me? What was the most challenging, and what was the biggest fuck-up? I adored being a parent, but in my particular circumstance, since her mom and I didn't live together, although we attempted at times to try that, but it never did happen, I had to live with, I felt I lived, no sorrow intended, but with a broken heart for at least first 10 years. I hated being away from her. I really loved being with her. It was like the greatest love affair of my life. And I just loved her mind. I loved the way that she played, that she laughed. I loved being a dad with her and her friends. I loved her artistic interests. And it was always goodbye, dropped off. Very aware of the clock each visit. And so that was a heartbreak and a humbling experience and a conscious choice to be near to her for those first 10 years. It's incessantly difficult that she didn't have access to my family and my friends. My mom and dad only met with her twice in her 13 years. It's just a difficult circumstance. I don't know if anyone here has ever had difficult co-parenting or single parenting circumstances, but listen, it's easy to make love and have a baby. It's very difficult to stay connected and to have a harmonious co-parenting role with your former partner or the mom or the dad of your child. Just, am I okay with this with you? Yeah. So the challenge was to keep an open heart and not judge, condemn, or blame people for the circumstances. Because I guess the main reason was not only self-conscience, but also children. Those of you who are moms and dads know that children really, really feel deeply. They're inherently psychic and intuitive. So I was very sensitive to atmospheric complication. The biggest fuck up, I don't really see that in my circumstance. Could I have given more time? My mom, especially, who I really admired, Alan, you've given everything you could imagine given and 10 times more. I've been involved in many men's groups who are dealing with estranged partners and wives and mothers. And I mean, I've been in groups 2 hours once a week for years where the men, adult men, prominent, successful men, all they do is cry at the heartbreak of not being near their children. They won't show that in court, they won't show that with their former partners, but I lived in that world, and I was one of those people. So it's really beyond challenging to deal with. The biggest fuck up probably is going to be that I'm here and not there. But I stand on the integrity of what I feel to make choices, to live my life. My mom's dying words were really, dying wish was that really wanted me to live my life. Your daughter will come to see you if she so chooses later on. That's been the hardest thing. And I fear at times that I'm abandoning her. And I try to stay checked in with her. I text her frequently. It's not an active dialogue. I have to really deal a lot with not being met in the way that I want to be met. But I never hold her responsible for my emotions and try to keep a very active place of holding her back, her comforting her back. I'm blessed to have one particular single parent woman friend who's been my mentor in the area of how to deal with teenage girls. There's been times, to be very honest with you, I don't regret the life that I've lived or the mistakes I've made or the choices I've made, but here I am, I get into a little bit sometimes. Alan, you're at 68. You're traveling the world looking for a place to live and die. You're single, you've got great friends. You know, people have grandchildren at this stage. They have tribes, they have homes. You know, the little bit of that gets in me sometimes. Did I miss something? Why am I consciously joking about it being a polyamorous celibate in Ubud? I question myself sometimes, like, what the fuck are you on about? I feel like I could be possibly way down deep inside, maybe, probably not, living out some unexplainable psychological complexities that no one really could get a handle on, even really talented psychiatrists and psychologists. Because after all, I do go home alone, I wake up alone, and I don't like it. And there's so many, look at these amazing women here. Look, and then all of Ubud, look at all of the world. So I live with an unrecognized fear sometimes that I could be not really understanding that on the terms of what could be most helpful to me to get over it. A little bit too insecurely self-confident could be a fuck up. Very few people really ask at times, and I think it's probably responsible for that. Like, how are you? What do you do? How do you feel? How was your day? How do you feel about the group? How do you construct your talks? How do you prepare for them? You don't get a lot of that in this work. I'm not asking for that, but putting it out. I don't feel that there's a little bit of a blind spot on reciprocity, whereas in the intimate relationships that I've been in, it's just breathtaking reciprocity. That's one of the most beautiful things about being intimate with one another. Is you've got a companion, a kind-hearted, curious, artistic, sexualized, romantic savant who, this gentleman's married for 17 years with the family. It indicates that there's reciprocity and dance and beauty and nurturing. How come I'm not feeling really that nurtured? Did I fuck up? But with my daughter, I really, really, really wish it could have worked out with her mom. I really do. I tried really, really hard to make it everything possible, even being, quite frankly, monogamous while she was with other men or women. It was okay with me just to be in the vicinity of my daughter. Live anywhere you want to live. I'll do all that I can to provide. Just, I loved being a dad. I love it. So, some part of me wishes that I had more in me to have risen to a higher sense of overcoming obstacles, but boy, I'll tell you, I was in a corner that just couldn't be darker for me, that if you do any more, you're dead. So, that's it.
Is there a single greatest thing that she taught you?
Single greatest thing that she's taught me. She has a pretty unending sense of bringing joy to circumstances of complexity. She grew up in the most derelict 1 square block of all of North America. It doesn't get more violent or more derelict, where she grew up in this one particular corner in Vancouver. It's called the Downtown East Side. Dan Rather, there for the Olympics, called it the 4 blocks from hell. It's the epicenter of North American drug abuse and use. Women there with IV in their arm, with children in grocery carts doing dollar blowjobs to get through. Hundreds of them. My daughter grew up on a corner. Her mother was a very well-known activist who bought a house and made it a safe haven for sex workers. Very radical, profound woman. We really connected. When I met her, she had dreadlocks beneath her knees. And she was unthinkable, talented filmmaker and editor. Super smart, like a way out smart. And she and I instantly felt a reciprocity energetically, intellectually, and sexually. I didn't even have the word twin flame at that. It was like twin lion energy. And it was like you cannot occupy the same cave when you're with another lion. And so we kind of ate each other's arm off and each other's leg off. And I lost my neck, I was bleeding, and we kept fucking, and it was like, so no matter what we did, it was like convulsive wrongness made sacred. You ever had a lover like that? Those were the days. I'd never felt so dynamically alive, but just like, this is too fucking much. From her point of view, I was fucking cowardly. And my daughter grew up there. So there was one time that we were talking and I was starting to more openly use expletives in our relationship. And I said, does this bother you? She said, Dad, I don't give a fuck. I grew up with the C word, the D word, the F word. I mean, who gives a shit? I went, I hear this stuff every day, all my life, Dad. When the bus comes 20 feet from my bedroom door, the bed shakes. I hear women out there, leave me fucking alone! Screams out like that. I'm going like, holy fuck. This girl had a conditioning that created a sense of radicalness. My answer to you is, she never ceases to hold that with joy. I'm okay. I'm down. I'm down. When we were about 8 years old, got her a flip camera. She's really down with movies. And one day she's over at my flat and we're making a movie together. And so I said, who do you want to be? Being in play acting together, art therapy, I'm thinking. So what does she do? She goes in her bedroom, comes out, dresses like a sex worker. She's 7 or 8 years old. And filming this thing, like, because there are hundreds of them in her vicinity. Hundreds of them. These are the better off ones. And she's pretending to be talking to someone on the sidewalk, and she rolls up some paper, because everyone smokes. And then what does she want? She wants to get some money, and she doesn't do any kind of exchange for it, so that she can buy some salt that she then puts into her nose, that she's seen many times, methamphetamines, crystal meth, Benetol, cocaine. It's a 7-year-old. It's my daughter. And this is what I grew up with. 2 blocks down the street is 5-star industry of 30 to 40-year-old boys and girls who are so fucking good looking. But these 2 blocks of hell is where she lived, and where all of Canada has thrown and disposed the addict, the sex workers, the disposed, the indigenous women. If you look online, the largest number of people killed by a serial killer, the Picton serial killer, from the block that she grew up on. 57 women over 8 years picked off the street and ground it into pig food. She's resilient. She's joyful. She hangs out. She's curious. You go like, whoa, I'm not meeting a teenager or a young woman. I'm meeting an embodied mind. And so she's a gift to me on the level of resilience and joy, non-denigration of self. She's very self-confident, but she's very, very sensitive. Doesn't want to go to school, so her mom and I agreed not to have her in school. She's independent, tremendously sensitive artist. She plays the cello, she plays the electronic keyboard, she plays the violin. And, you know, she loves cats. She's got an Instagram page of just her cats. Bless her heart. She's highly ethical. Like, I once asked her jokingly one night at dinner, you know, what do you want to be? She said, I'll probably want to be a policewoman. And I said, let me ask you, do you think if I were coming home late at night across the bridge and I was speeding and you pulled me over, would you give me a ticket? And she waited for like about, she really deliberated, like way longer than normal. She went, had no discomfort in thinking about it. It was not natural. I said, probably not like that. Probably not. But she's so ethical. I call her law and order. So she teaches me things that I normally wouldn't know. She's not in collusion with me. She resists a little bit of me. She's sensitive to me. She's proud. And it's teaching me a lot about the nuances of love that is a father to a daughter. I've never known that. So I'm really deeply bowed to her mom, the difficulty of being a single mom or a single dad. So she's high gift. Part of my deeper struggle is how to find that kind of love in a principal intimacy with a woman and something more and beyond. And so my former partner was just really just adored, I'd say, the idea of her. And that was really cool, to see someone that really loved, wanted to, I'm open to a love with your child. So, thank you for the question.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're very welcome. Please take your time. We'll take a break after this.
So sometimes I feel like in this chaotic world, there is no such a thing as like black and white. So like people think chemicals can be very detrimental to our health, as they just like pursue something really natural, but accept the fact that everything around us is chemical, right? So I feel like we divide the world into good people and pedos, into fictional and factual, into status quo and fairies. So what's your perspective on this?
Help me understand your question, please.
You know, like
chemicals and people, how does that relate?
Pedos and good people.
People.
Good people and
good
pedos.
people. Good
yeah.
people and bad people.
Yeah, like pedos, like
What's that word?
pedophilia.
Pedophile. Good people and pedophiles. Okay, got it.
And like status quo and fairies.
Pedophiles, I'm very clear about.
Like into black and white. So, but I feel like there's no such a thing as a bad race.
A bad race.
Binary. Like
Band-Aid?
no black and white.
No black and white.
Yeah.
That we all have some degree of evil in us and some degree of light.
Yeah.
I would say that that's true, for sure. I think you're absolutely right. You know, I'm fond of one quote by a man named Dostoevsky, famous writer. He says, "Beauty is mysterious as well as terrible. And God and the devil, or good and bad, light and dark, is in the heart of all men and women, and this is the greatest battle of all." So those are some of the great minds. Buddha talked about everything that we condemn, we could do. So I'm reflecting back to what I'm hearing you say. I'm not sure that it matters, or that's what you're asking.
What do you think of the reasons behind it?
The reasons behind it. I think there are infinite reasons why people do what they do. But beneath that, I think it precedes the idea of I and doer. I think beings are born into beingness, and that they're born with primordial forces inherent in the current of DNA and consciousness. I don't think someone just simply grows into being evil or grows into being a saint. I think these forces of anger and delusion and good and bad, right and wrong, are all in the human mind, or in the genome of consciousness. That's my feeling, that's been my understanding. And if the right conditions arise, they can arise. Remove the condition and they cease.
Yeah, because like sometimes I feel like when I'm doing something right, but it's actually the other way, like it's actually wrong. And when I feel like I'm doing something wrong, it's actually right. So.
See, that's a very interesting observation for me, is how to know what is right versus wrong, and how to know when something's wrong to make it right. And how, when you do something right and it's wrong, how to know that the right is wrong. How to be more understanding of the truth of something.
Yeah.
Well, trial and error, having a quality in the mind of self-reflection and mindful self-reflection. There's two qualities within classical Buddhist psychology that are worthy to mention before we take a break. They're known as hiri and ottappa. They're called the twin guardians of goodness. In the absence of these two states of consciousness, individuals will do things that are wrong and actually enjoy it, and will abscond from doing things right and enjoy not doing what is right. But when hiri and ottappa are present, they're more likely to stop a wrong and continue doing a right. What are these two states in our language? Hiri and ottappa is moral regret. That there's a consciousness in me that when I'm doing something wrong, I feel a sense of contraction, exhaustion, inappropriateness. It's a felt, developed state of mind. And then ottappa is you feel that those who you respect would blame you for thinking, saying, and doing this. And so you recoil from that behavior. Those two things, in the absence of them, will do anything that greed and fear and delusion tell us to do. But if we cultivate moral regret, moral shame, we hold ourselves accountable to those states of mind that really are the heartbeat of conscience and the soul of integrity, then if I'm saying something to you that I'm feeling is not really motivated from kindness and love and respect, like my words to Margaret this morning were tinged with fear, tinged with greed, tinged with delusion. She and I made up. We hugged each other. She committed to $50 a month now because of that. I did it purposely to manipulate her. See, I'm incorrigible. I'm just highlighting what I mean by hearing ottappa, but the truth is, we both had the moral courage to not only hold each other accountable, but even more beautiful, we got closer together as a result. That's hiri and ottappa in action. And then you know you're on the right side of right, and questioning being on the right side or the wrong side of wrong. Make sense?
Yeah.
And if
I
you
also feel like we're gonna question like the society, and we're gonna question the society. Like we're gonna seek for something we're always looking for.
One more time? Take your time, you're okay. There's no, it's not you, it's more of my mind that doesn't really trying to understand the amplification.
For me, I feel like I'm gonna have to question everything that, the informations from outside and also the society.
It sounds to me that you are in a discussion for direction, meaning, skillfulness, self-identity, some of those things. You have a best friend?
Yeah.
Do you have a mentor that you look up to?
No, not really. I'm looking for.
Look, that's beautiful, beautiful. If you want me to be supportive in your life, I'll be very happy to support you.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Sure.
Without a doubt. And so please reach out anytime and I'll do what I can. Buy this book, Wisdom for the World. It's by my teacher and I. It's short. You can get it in Australia when you go back to Melbourne. And he talks very much about these things in such simple terms. He's much smarter than I am, and he's much more articulate with the simplest of language. And in that you'll find I think, good information to help support clarity of speech, clarity of action, clarity of direction. And after you read that, reach out to me and we can talk about it. Okay?
Yeah, okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. So I don't know what time it is at the moment. 1:25?
15:25. 3:25.
3:25. So if we can take, say, 10 minutes or so to chill and to write and keep it silent here, we'll come back and we'll do a guided meditation on loving kindness and forgiveness, and then take the rest of the day to continue talking together. Okay, thank you.